What's up, U.S. history students? After talking about the JFK assassination, right, the most famous assassination of the 60s that takes place in November of 1963, there's three other important figures and leaders that also are assassinated during the 1960s. And so just keep in mind, we're not going to have a lot of time this year to spend on the hippie and counterculture movement. But for a lot of people, especially younger, it feels like the way we've done things in society up to this point are causing things to rip apart at the seams. We're in a Cold War where nuclear attack is a constant threat, right? Like the Cuban Missile Crisis. We're in a Vietnam conflict that is very controversial and costing American lives, right up to the total of 58,000 by the end of the conflict. And so the status quo, right, isn't really working. And so that and all these assassinations, right? The president being killed, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King getting assassinated, Bobby Kennedy, the brother of JFK, who's running for president near the end of the decade, also killed. It just piles on to kind of make the 60s feel like a time of a lot of uncertainty and maybe a time to change the way we've been doing things. And so for this one, I want to try to look at a couple of these other assassinations. So Malcolm X, right, more of a radical civil rights leader, is actually killed in Harlem, New York in 1965. Very violent assassination. Not that any of them aren't violent, but he's gunned down by a number of members from the group he used to belong to at that point called the Nation of Islam. And he's really murdered while he's delivering a speech. His family's near the front of the auditorium, and so his kids even see it, and his wife. And yeah, it's an intense assassination, an intense scene. I will put a link in the description that kind of does a good job of using an eyewitness account to explain what it was like. And then also Denzel Washington was actually played Malcolm X in a movie, and that clip is pretty powerful, showing kind of what the assassination, how it looked and how it happened. Then fast forward 3 more years, Martin Luther King Jr., right, the pinnacle, the kind of image of the civil rights movement and the nonviolent, successful civil rights movement, is gunned down leaving his hotel room in Memphis, Tennessee. Gunned down by a guy named James Earl Ray, who has ties to the Klan. And so, yeah, the end of the civil rights leader has ties to racism and segregation and discrimination and all those things he's been fighting against. There's a clip, though, that I want you to watch, actually 2 of them that I will link in this video. Bobby Kennedy, who's running for president in 1968, you can see MLK is killed in April of 1968. Bobby's trying to get the Democratic nominee to be the presidential candidate to run in the election of 1968 that November. He is delivering or set to deliver a speech in Indianapolis, Indiana, the night of that assassination, in a more urban area to a largely African-American crowd. They did not have these cell phones in 1968. And so people are at this speech or waiting for this speech, and they don't know that the great civil rights leader has been assassinated and killed in Memphis, Tennessee. Bobby Kennedy has to go out and deliver that news, and delivers what I think is one of the greatest speeches maybe in all of American history. It's definitely up there. I mean, there's been a lot of great ones, but it definitely should be up there. And it's for sure one a lot of people really don't know about. And it's credited with staving off any kind of major violence, urban rioting and stuff in Indianapolis. Much of the country, including right Detroit and Michigan, experiences urban riots because of the assassination of Dr. King. People are upset and trying to figure out how to respond to the fact that it appears a KKK member killed the civil rights leader of the 1960s, and even right into the 50s he was. So a lot of emotion around that assassination that boils over into the form of protest and rioting. And so watch that clip down in the link. There's one other link. It's the speech MLK gives to a group the day before, the night before he's assassinated. And it's kind of eerie when you watch it because it's almost like he knows assassination or an attempt or something is coming. And watch that clip. Tell me what you think in the comments. Those 2 things are always really powerful for me. The Bobby Kennedy speech is about 5 or 6 minutes long.